Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back here with part 2 of my shopping list for Christmas for Celtic. How would you want to put it? As ever, I'd love to read comments and hear from my fellow Celtic fans. Can't make up whether I'm hot or cold today, but I really love this jacket that my stepdad got me. It's nice and green, like Celtic. As they play in green and white, obviously. But yeah, so I'd love to read any comments and that kind of thing, and if anyone wants to make their own version of this video, possibly more coherent than me, I would love to see it or see them as well, if there are a few of them. Anyway, sorry, I'm waffling away. I know the last video went on that note for about 20 minutes, where I wanted it to go to about 10 minutes, so I'll try and get to a point and be as coherent as possible. Anyway, here goes. This is part 2 of my Christmas shopping list for Celtic, however you want to put it in better English or whatever. But here goes. So these are ideas number 11 to 20. So here goes. I keep saying that. So number 11, I would love for I'd love to hear from and read comments from Celtic fans about what sort of things you think Celtic should change. Like, for instance, do you think they could invest more money? Would you want to sack the board? Be interesting to get opinion polls on Celtic fans, like how many want to see the board be sacked, how many think the board are doing a good job. I was wondering if a replacement for them, even if you did sack them, is there anyone who can come in and who can improve it, or is it just because Celtic are playing in Scotland and don't have the finances of a lot of clubs like EPL or even La Liga or Bundesliga or Serie A clubs, that they can't really do much anyway? On that note, I was thinking, what if Celtic did get wealthy investors, like people like the City Group investing, or people like that, or many co-owners, Arabs investing in the club and things like that, or even people from across Asia and Africa, even Latin America, Ireland. I'd love for people from Ireland to invest in the club, and all around the world, people of Irish descent, with the Irish clubs with the club's connections to Ireland and the Irish diaspora and whatnot. On that note, I'd love for people of Irish descent, or even Celts around the world, to support Celtic and to get as many fans as possible. But I'd love to know what you think the club can do to improve, how it can improve its marketing, how could it attract more investors, how could it offer like shares, equity, or things like that, and all sorts of things like that. So I'd love to know what any ideas you have, basically, that could improve the club. And if let's say people like the City Group or the PIF or anyone like that did invest, or even many of them invest small shares each, having small equity, a small amount of equity in the club each, or obviously the more money they have and the more power they have, the more that their equity could be. Like the PIF could own 50% of it, and of Celtic, and maybe City Group could own a certain amount, and that kind of thing. If they did, I think they should learn from mistakes and pitfalls, potential pitfalls, which could be that would be I haven't said speed marks, we or us, would be a better club. Celtic would be in a better position perhaps than Man City, that is, because, and possibly even Newcastle, because if we had many shareholders and equity holders, that could really help. And secondly, they could learn from the pitfalls. So where Man City might be getting in trouble, they might even face potential relegation. Sorry, my kittens have gone crazy. Or whatever. Celtic could avoid those mistakes, and they could learn and say, oh yeah, this is what went wrong last time, or this is how we invested last time, and we fell foul of these rules, FFP and all that kind of thing. This is what we could do differently. And as I said in part 1, I'd love to know what signings you think we should have, transfers or whatever, and that kind of thing. And as I say, anything that you think Celtic could do to change, to improve. And if new owners came in, maybe then the board would have to be chopped, would have to be sacked. I don't know. Maybe some people might think that the board are doing a good job, and I think they need to be, their views are taken into account. Everyone's views need to be taken into account. I'm not 100% sure. I think it's hard to say. Could they? Some people think they should go and spend all the money, but if they did, what would happen if there was a rainy day or whatever? I definitely think Celtic should go out and spend so much money to make sure that we win this league again for the 3rd time in a row, and God knows how many times in recent years, but our 53rd trophy, and overtake Rangers ASAP, our rivals, our nearest and dearest rivals, ASAP in the overall table of trophies in Scotland. But and next season, because they could be up to, I think it's up to 60 million, as I mentioned recently, they could be that kind of money. I think it was a couple of days ago I mentioned. But even if it's like 30 million, then it's worth Celtic going out and spending like 29 million to ensure we get that prize money. The club gets that prize money. So maybe you got to, as my dad would put it, speculate to accumulate. In other words, sometimes you've got to spend money and reinvest in business to ensure that you get those returns. Anyway, I think I covered that point in great detail. Basically, put it simply, what would you like to see change? Do you think the board should be sacked? Do you think they should be kept? Are there things the club should change? And again, any changes you think could happen? Like some people might argue, there's no replacement for the board. So if it got sacked, who's going to take over and who's going to, unless and until there is that investment, wealthy owners, Arab owners, or whatever investing, there's no replacement. There's no replacement. Anyway, moving on. Number 12. What does the club do well? And again, some people might think that the club is doing a good job and managing the money responsibly, so we don't get into trouble, like our nearest and dearest rivals, for instance, or like Portsmouth, I nearly said Plymouth, like Portsmouth or others did when they got into financial difficulties. What many clubs have done, so when they were overinvested, or with FFP, ensuring we don't fall foul of those sorts of things. So some, as they might say, the board are doing a good job and shouldn't go out and invest, and that they disagree with fans. But I hope we can agree. That's one thing I wish that Celtic fans could do: agree to disagree amicably and accept all opinions. As I said in part one, I think it's a shame when they disparage people for having a different opinion. So I think it'd be cool to. That's one thing I think we should change. Actually, I could have said in point number 11. But what are some of the things that the club, as I say, does do well that could be stuck to, adhered to, and that kind of thing. Number 13, again, what are some of the negatives about the club? I suppose that's kind of like part 11. What are some of the negatives? I normally think of a negative for number 13, or negatives for number 13 in the singular or the plural. Yeah, what are some of the negative things about the club? Like, for instance, the IRA chanting, hooliganism. I know pretty much all clubs probably have a hooligan element. Over politicalisation. Again, I mentioned in part one, like how the people say Tories not welcome and things like that, disagree with stuff like that. But and also again, as I just mentioned, like people not agreeing to disagree on views, rather than shout people's opinions down and say you're not allowed an alternative opinion, and things like that. Those are some of the things that I think are bad or wrong about the club that could be changed. Again, like I said in point number 11. But I'd love to know what you think on each of these points. Number 14, what are some of the solutions to some of the negatives or some of the struggles? How could the club spend money and in a sensible way, but also make sure that they do reinvest that money? Number 15, I mentioned again in point number one, in part one, sorry, point number 5, how I'd love to read from and hear from my fellow Celts, Celtic fans, in other words, about what your dreams and goals are. And mine are basically just for Celtic to win as many trophies as possible. I'd still love to hear from and read from my fellow Celts. But me personally, I'd love to see as much investment as possible legally and preferably ethically. 10% of that invested into buying better players, improving the squad, buying the best possible goalkeepers in the plural, because then we've got some on the bench as well, defenders, midfielders, strikers and whatnot, 2 or 3 good possible position, that kind of thing. And then most importantly, I think winning as many trophies domestically and possibly even a few in Europe. I'd love to see us win the 5 trophies that would be available to us in potentially in Europe or international. I mean, I suppose if we keep winning the league, then we won't be able to be in the Conference League or probably even the Europa League. Certainly not the Conference League, but maybe there should be a way where clubs like Celtic could compete in that level, so at least we have a chance to win a trophy rather than finishing bottom of the Champions League. Although it's difficult, it's a difficult balance because the money you get for getting into the Champions League is more than that. So it's probably more than winning the Conference League, so it's a difficult balance to get right. But I think it would give us a chance to at least compete. Even if we don't win it, we could still compete. But obviously, it'd be cool if we win it, because I love to win trophies. Being in Europe, it does have a disadvantage in that you have two things to focus on, or whatever. So you have 2 games a week, and it can be tiring for the players. So it could affect the domestic form. But from Celtic's point of view, I think as long as we win more trophies than Rangers, that will do for me. And it's like victory over imperialism. I'd love for Celtic to win, like, as possibly a Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, UEFA Super Cup, and even World Club Cup. That'd be amazing, especially the latter, which I think should have more prize money. I think if FIFA could, they should give like £1 billion, or maybe a couple of billion, for winning the World Club Cup. Maybe I'm being naive about the finances of FIFA, but if they had that kind of money, I think it would be really good for marketing. Whether they can make it back, though, I don't know. But I think the World Club Cup should be the pinnacle of competition as a European club competitions. As a side note, but as I say, I'd love to see Celtic win as many trophies as possible, put simply, and those 5 trophies which I just mentioned, and again get the best possible signings, transfers, or whatnot, and the best possible squad, not just team of 11, but even squad and things like that. But most importantly, to win more trophies than Rangers. That's really my biggest dream for Celtic. Number 16. On that note, I'd love to know what could help to contribute to these things, like investments. How could the club attract more investment? And generally, what could benefit the club? How can it market itself better? Again, attract more investment, get better players in. What sort of signings? I say, would you like to see? What sort of things could the club do better? As I say, basically, I'd love to see committees, think tanks, cooperatives, and that kind of thing. And the club consult with fans on ideas and what the fans want to see, and sharing ideas openly together and agreeing to disagree. Maybe the bad ideas we could all laugh at least. People could all laugh at least. And the good ones could change the club. Maybe ideas we don't even think would work could work if we try to implement them. But that's what I think anyway. Number 17. It would be hard to imagine, but as I say, I'd love to see Celtic become world class. Some people from England or elsewhere laugh at the idea of Celtic becoming world class, as they laugh at Scottish football, including obviously Celtic. But yeah, the idea of Celtic becoming world class, I think that'd be pretty cool. And again, I'd love to see possibly winning the Conference League, then Europa League, Champions League, UEFA Super Cup, and World Club Cup, and even winning like maybe 200 trophies in the future. I'm not sure about that, but if I'm really dreaming, I would say that, depending on how long the world will last. But if the world's still around 100 years' time or something like that, by some miracle. If climate change and wars haven't ended the world, but yeah, it would be great to see us win like 200 trophies or something like that. I know, first world problems, but first world priorities perhaps. Number 18, Celtic is already part of Football for Good, so I hope they continue to do that. And I think they should capitalise on that and talk about like how the SNP and politicians in Glasgow and across Scotland and that kind of thing should help the club to give opportunities for young people to get into football, because it's, as I mentioned before, it's a deprived area. So I think that should enable them to have tax exemptions, more funding, lottery funding, the lottery for good funding from FIFA, UEFA, and that kind of thing, working with charities and NGOs to help young people to create 7-a-side football pitches and things like that, 6 and 7-a-side football pitches, and all sorts of opportunities, as many spaces and places for sport, in this case football, places and spaces for young people to play football in Glasgow and across Scotland, and having academies in developing nations as well would be pretty cool, and I hope they continue to do the good work they do. Number 19, I also dream the club will help and support and benefit Indigenous Africans and Australasians in all areas of STEM education, science, tech, engineering and maths, including software development, game making and all sorts of things like that. Helping Africans and Australasians to make video games, and maybe they could even make football related video games, and things like that. And number 20, a bit of a cheeky idea. If I had sugar mamas and sugar daddies, I would love to, or if I had a lot of money somehow, I would love to invest that in Celtic, or donate that to Celtic. I thought I'd include a silly idea for the last one, but anyway, I'd love to know what my fellow Celts or others think Anyone welcome to comment, but I hope football fans will comment, especially Celtic fans and fans of Italian football, as I often say as well, because I'd love to have a partnership, as I said in part one, and as I often say, between Italian football and Celtic. Anyway, I am out. Peace and love.